So there's kind of four main things that we're going to do with fractions. We've got simplification, or actually probably, well, there's lots of things that you're going to do with fractions, but probably three of the common things is simplification, or simplifying, multiplication, and division. And I guess addition's another one. We might have a look at addition as well. So if we're simplifying, that's the first thing to look at. And all we do to simplify, if we're looking at an example like 27 over 36, we look for highest common factor. So we say, what goes into 27 that also goes into 36? Or what goes into 36 that also goes into 27? In this case, we can see, well, hopefully, you might be able to see, you say, okay, 3 goes into it, 3 goes into both, but what else? When we find that the highest one is 9, and you could do 3 and you could do 3 again, and that'd be okay. So 9 goes into 27 how many times? Well, it goes into 27 3 times, and how many times does 9 go into 36? 4 times. So that's our simplification. So that's all we have to do with simplification. Look for the highest common factor. The next thing is multiplication. And this one's quite an easy one. So we've just consider one like this, just a half times a third, and all we want to do is top times top, in this case 1 times 1 along the top, over bottom times bottom. And so our top times top is 1, and our bottom times bottom is 6. So we've just got 1 over 6. In words, we could kind of think of this example as 1/2 of a third is a sixth. And I guess, if we look at our pizza kind of example here, we could cut it into thirds, and so kind of consider this third. You can consider this third, and we could say 1/2 of this third. So if we cut it up and cut it in half, that third, we'd have a sixth. And we can see that because if we cut all the thirds in half, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of the pizza. Probably a weird way to cut a pizza, but we've got 1/2 of a third. 1/2 of the third. So that's kind of another way to think about our multiplications of fractions. Or 1/2 lots of a third, as you would say, 2 lots of 5 is 2 times 5. And so what about the last thing I was talking about was division. And how do we do division? For example, a little example in there, 1/2 divided by 1/4. Well, there's a cool thing we can do here. We know that the inverse of multiplication is division, right? And vice versa. So all we do is flip second fraction, and we find that 1/2 divided by 1/4 equals 1/2 times 4 over 1, which is just, again, top times top, bottom times bottom. 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2. And does that simplify? Is there a highest common factor? Well, yes, 2 goes into both of them, so we have 2 over 1, and anything divided by 1 is just 2. But is there a way, in the same way that we kind of looked at this one and said 1/2 of a third is a sixth, is there a way we can talk about this? Well, yeah, there is. What we can say is, how many quarters, that's the second one, how many quarters in a half. Just as in the same way as if you were saying, 10 divided by 5, you'd be saying how many 5s in 10. So here, if we were saying 10 divided by 5, we'd be saying how many 5s are in 10. And if we're saying a half divided by a quarter, we're saying how many quarters are in a half. And so again, we can think about I'm going to draw a circle in a nice way this time. Whoa. So again, we've got a half of this. How many quarters in a half? So there's our half. And we want to say, it's our half. Oops. A half. How many quarters in that? Well, I think it's pretty clear. There's 1/4 there. 1/4. Oops, 1/4. And there's another quarter there. 1/4. So, when we ask a half, how many quarters, or how many quarters in a half, there are 2 quarters. Bang. Tick. Good to know. Now I mentioned we might have a look at some addition and subtraction. I guess the main thing here is just to put both over a common denominator. So if we've got a half plus a quarter, we'd say, well, how do we add that? We have to talk about the same units, because we have to talk about the same units. Otherwise, it's really hard to know, or we can't resolve it into one term unless we talk about the same denominator, the same sized piece of the pizza. So a half and a quarter. Well, what size pieces? Could we talk about halves? Well, no, because we wouldn't get a whole number here. We'd be saying, oh, this is a half of a half, and that gets a bit confusing. So what we do notice from our previous example is that we can talk about a half as being 2 quarters. So a half is 2 quarters, and a quarter is 1/4. And we know we're talking about quarters, so we're still talking about the number of quarters that we have, but we have 2 of them, and then we have another 1 of them, so we've got 3 quarters. So that's how we do our addition. And subtraction's the same thing. We just put it over a common denominator. Okay, fractions, decimals, and percentage conversions. What are we looking at? 3. Number 4.